finally have a decision on Kendre Miller. Will he be staying with the New Orleans Saints? The answer is yes, but there's a little bit of information we have to add to that, and we'll talk about it right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Houdat Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglu, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Scott McNair Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, or hurt offshore, Scott McNair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. That's right, a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. Kendre Miller's status with the New Orleans Saints has been an interesting topic. Let's just put it that way. There are Saints fans who are so frustrated with him missing time that they wouldn't mind if he gets cut. There's the other side of the coin where they know that there's talent and they're saying, hey, this isn't a really talented offense. You might as well be patient and hope that he can get healthy and make an impact this year. And I think to some degree, both sides are correct. I understand the frustration for a guy who is never on the field, and I understand the patience because this team does not have a lot of playmakers, especially at running back. It's Alvin and then role players, I would say. Well, the Saints decided today with the deadline for the 53-man roster what they're going to do with Kendre Miller. And despite Dennis Allen calling him out, despite the frustration that's starting to mount there, the Saints are going to keep Kendre Miller. However, he's expected to be placed on injured reserve to start the season, according to Josina Anderson, which means we're not going to see Kendre Miller the first month of the season. And honestly, that shouldn't surprise anyone because we haven't seen Kendre Miller in a minute now. It's been a while since he's been on the field for the Saints. So Kendre Miller going to start the year on injured reserve. Not exactly a surprise. For New Orleans, though, this does give them time to be patient with his injury and say, okay, if we could get him back around October, maybe late October, he can add some juice to this running back room. Because look, I think that Clint Kubiak's scheme in the preseason when he was kind of cooking and not playing the vanilla style offense that people usually do in the preseason, you see the running lanes are there, and you can only imagine what a guy with Kendre's talent can do in that scheme. And the problem is availability, and we know that's going to be the issue for him regardless. But if Kendre can come back and his hamstring isn't a problem and he can give the Saints a lift in the middle of the season, that could really help that running back room. And I think for Kendre, you can argue this might be it. This is definitely it for him in New Orleans if he can't figure it out this year. But who knows? At the running back position, if you can't stay healthy, teams are not going to be patient with you. So this seems like the final straw, but I do think this is the right move for the Saints because I don't think New Orleans is a talented enough team offensively to just get rid of a guy that has a lot of bursts that can really help out the backfield. On the other hand, you don't really want to waste a roster spot right now when Kendre Miller's hurt and you don't know when he's ready to come back. So you place him on IR. You'll have an available spot to fill at that time. And then you can make a decision when Kendre's hamstring is feeling a lot better. And we can go from there. So when Kendre Miller eventually returns this season, either he's going to give the Saints a lift or the Saints are going to give him a kick out of New Orleans, depending on how he handles his recovery and how he performs once he gets on the field. But it all starts with the second part. He's got to get on the field first so we can see what he's truly made of. We've seen glimpses of potential with him. There's been moments where I think he can be a special player for this team, but they're few and far in between. And unfortunately, we just don't see this guy on the gridiron that often. So we'll see what happens with Kendre Miller later this year. But for now, his roster status is safe. He'll be in New Orleans and he'll start the year on injured reserve. There's a lot more moves that the Saints are going to make in the coming hours with the roster deadline coming up, which means we got more work to do here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for